All right, thank you for staying with Kenya's Choice 2022. We're about to start that conversation right here on Citizen TV. We'd like to hear your views on every single topic that we'll talk about. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Kenya's Choice 2022. My guest in studio, Honorable Farah Mali, Member of Parliament-elect for Dadaab, Honorable Sylvia Kasanga, former nominated senator, and Oliver Kipchumba, Advocate of the High Court, is about to come in. As soon as he comes in, we'll drop him into the conversation. All right, let's start off with the dailies. Looking at the Daily Nation here, there's a smoking gun in Raila's petition and the Standard inside Raila's evidence. But before we even get to that, Honorable Farah, I'll start with you. Thank you for making time. You have served before as the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly.
Yes.
How different is this assignment going to be, before we get into the nitty-gritties, now that you're Member of Parliament-elect for Dadaab?
How different is going to be?
How different is this assignment going to be, this stint that you now have as a Member of Parliament-elect for Dadaab?
But I was also a Member of Parliament-elect initially, and then I then contested for the Deputy Speaker and became a Deputy Speaker. Mm-hmm. So I don't get your question. Are you saying that now that you're an ordinary Member of Parliament and before you were a Deputy Speaker, so what's going to happen? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, you've been away for a while.
Ah, okay.
Yes. And now how different is this going to be? Because the last time I spoke to you, you were the Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
You were away for some
time. Well, I could still become the Deputy Speaker, so you never know. Mm-hmm. Depending on how much support I get from across the aisle.
Yeah.
And it's one responsibility or load I'm looking forward to. Okay. Because the beauty with being a Deputy Speaker is that you address as Mr. Speaker with all the powers of the Speaker, but at the same time you represent a constituency. Okay. You not only have a casting vote, but you also have an original vote. Yeah. You know, the Speaker is an ex-officio member. He only has a casting vote. He only can break a tie. And traditionally, as a president, they don't break ties. Mm-hmm. They allow it, you know. Well, I'm looking forward to both tasks. And by the way, let me tell you one thing. I know everybody who has not made it to Parliament claims that it's been rigged out. But so if I tell you that I could have made it in the last 2 terms, but I was rigged out, you will say that's what everybody says. But the reality of the matter is that I've always had the mandate of my people. Okay. It's always been, you know, politically one way or the other. I'm looking forward to this. Parliament has not been an exciting body for the last 10 years. And hopefully we will make it exciting this time. Yeah. And we will deliver on a very ambitious legislative agenda, which not only is going to be initiated by the government side, because ordinarily the primary role of Parliament is to pass government bills. That's the primary role. But we will initiate our own you know, private members' bills, party bills, because you know, this is it's an enduring vision. It's an enduring. It's not. You know, a constitution is a living document, and laws are actually also living, which means you have to progressively always make laws to attend to the challenges of the moment. Because as we keep on living and we go through technological, we go through social, we go through political changes and economic changes in the globe, you are supposed to always keep in tandem with that and keep on making laws that address those challenges. Yeah. So I don't think our Parliament has been that kind of a vibrant Parliament for the last 10 years. So there's need to change that. Yeah. I do understand there are fundamental changes in our Constitution that makes it different from the way it used to be before. But nonetheless, we still have an opportunity to do a lot in this country. And you know, development is about laws. Yeah. Development, if you're looking at social development, technological development, and all those things, you have to have laws that address that and cater for that. Yeah. That is living progressively and enduring, actually. So I'm looking forward to that with a lot of...
Would you say Parliament has failed in the last 2 terms?
I don't want to say it has failed. I mean, failed is a very strong, what do you call, term. Yeah. But it has not been as exciting as the 10th Parliament was, for example. I don't know if you remember the 10th Parliament. It was literally the most exciting Parliament when we had a coalition government, but we also had an impartial, non-partisan, very progressive, patriotic leadership for Parliament. I mean, the team of Marende and Farah Mali, I think we tried our best for the country. at that time. And that was why it was very, very exciting, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Kasanga, let me hear your views in this before we get into the dailies. In hindsight, were there things that the bicameral parliament would have done better?
First, let me thank you for having me. And I hope you realize today this is a Wiper affair here on Citizen TV. And very proud of our performance as a party in this last election, despite all the challenges. And I'll say, yes, actually, I'll agree to a large extent with Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim over this issue of parliament. In fact, a lot of debate happened in the course of this last parliament, and we did say our parliament had been captured. In fact, the last two parliaments had been fairly well captured by the state. And in such instances, you have to question then, you know, the parliament could have done a lot more and could have delivered a lot more for Kenyans. But nonetheless, they did what they could do. Lots of challenges, especially on the Senate side and the battle between supremacy between the two houses. That one saw a lot of good things not delivered to Kenyans because of that supremacy battle that happened. In fact, I remember twice we've gone to court as Senate, taken National Assembly to court because of stifling of the bills that come from the Senate, you know, and things like that, and many other instances where you could see there's a challenge. And we are really hoping that the next parliament is going to resolve a lot of those things. And also the rule of law. You know, once the courts have decided on certain matters to give certain powers either to parliament or to Senate, then those have to be adhered to. But we had instances where even after the courts have ruled, you will still find that the National Assembly, you know, will still hold back and still, you know, either pass bills without having them go through Senate as well. So that battle really did see a lot of challenges on service delivery to Kenyans. But we are looking forward to hopefully a more robust parliament. We really do hope, like he's saying, that we see a lot more, you know, activity and a lot more debate and a lot more, you know, bills being passed this time round as compared to the last parliament.
All right. Honorable Maalim, how would you rate the IEBC's performance in this election that just ended, which you took part in?
A bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I rate them very well for all the other elections except the presidential. This is literally,
except the presidential?
Yes, this is the best I can tell you we've ever had. Okay. And that gives me a lot of hope for the future. I mean, we are increasingly coming out of the woods. We had the repeal of Section 2A and a multi-party system in the country, but that was just in paper. I mean, the kind of riggings that were done in the last 3 elections is preposterous. I'm talking about just prior to this one, the one of 2017, 2013, and 2007, were just outrageous. But now you can see that everything is again verifiable. By the way, everything is verifiable. All we need to do is to go back to the KIMS, go back to the ballots, go back to the tallings, and you will see what everybody got. Even if you try to stuff, you cannot stuff the KIMS. You understand my point?
Yeah.
You can't stuff the KIMS. And in my constituency, they were not even accepting the manual. If you miss you can't get the fingerprints, that was the end of it. People are not voting.
Yeah.
And that basically meant that the number of people who have voted on the KIMS and the number of people who have voted for all these different offices must tally. You understand my point? So the mischief can only be in 2 things. A returning officer giving 2 ballot papers, and it's not an easy thing because you always have agents there. Although we as Emeo made such an gargantuan, what do you call, mistake of not having agents in 2 very big areas where our opposition was maximum. That was in Kalenjin, Rift Valley, and in Mountain Region.
So you didn't have agents there?
No, this is the problem. We didn't. Okay. Somebody slept on the job. Somebody seriously slept on the job. Okay. And that was the area where we were supposed to have invested very well, because even in the past, we had such challenges where our agents were there, and even if they were there, they were not properly taken care of. And then, you know, they didn't have meals, they didn't have money for meals, they didn't have, we didn't take care of them. So there was a problem there. I'm talking about past what you call elections. Personally, I was telling people last night, I invested heavy in the agents. I had 2 agents for every polling station. I paid each one of them a handsome amount of money to take care of them for that, so that they cannot be bought. And I made sure that there's food. Okay, I'm just dealing with 102 polling stations, which is a very small number, I mean, compared to 46,000 all over the country. But I think we could have done the same also for the 46,000 times 2, almost 93,000 agents, and taking good care of them.
Yeah, just to give a general picture to the public, when you say somebody slept on the job, who does the buck stop with, and how expensive is that agent affair? Because Sakaja was here yesterday and he said he spent 15 million
on agents.
Yes.
And that's why he protected his votes. It's important. I spent over 2 million myself. And Sakaja, I can assume, I don't know how many polling stations are there in Nairobi. There must be about 1,000 or plus. How many people voted? No, there are more than, what, 2,000? 2,000, yeah. Polling stations. In my case, only 102. And if you upscale that by 10 times, that you still come to about 20 million. And this is probably not 10 times more, but 100 times more. You know what I mean?
So who slept on the job on the Azimio side?
We have been rigged out. I think I firmly believe that Raila won this election, but we also failed as a coalition in protecting our votes in those 2 places. We did not have agents who are well taken care of.
Okay.
Now that gave an opportunity for people to do the things they did, the hanky-panky business.
Yeah.
If your agent is hungry, he will just be given 2,000 and go and look for a meal. And while he's away, you change the tally, you do whatever you want to do. But those will all be argued out in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And if the Supreme Court, what do you call, orders for a recount and verification, you know, the claims against all that, they will be found. So nobody, you can steal, but you can run, but you can hide, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you will be flushed out, you'll be smoked out.
Okay.
So whatever that's happened, this court is going to do a good job. And if this court does a fantastic job right now of declaring the winner as the winner and the loser as the loser, then we have a country for posterity that we'll always be proud of.
Okay, we'll get into a bit of nitty-gritties of that, of course, avoiding the sub judice end of it. But Kasanga, is that where the ball was dropped, in your view, in hindsight, that the agents weren't there?
You know, notwithstanding the challenges that we might have had in the course of the electioneering day, you know, the fact does remain that even as Kenyans, we need to really question ourselves around these things. You know, why should there be a tampering of the election? You know, why are we playing around with our democracy and therefore the future of our country? You know, for me, that's where it stops, and I associate myself with the sentiments of the Right Honorable Raila. After presenting the petition, he did say, we are seeing an attack on our democracy. Okay. We are seeing a very orchestrated, you know, interference with outcomes of our election, you know, from election to another election consecutively. Yeah. And that is of great concern. And that is what we really need to question ourselves as Kenyans. And as you have seen, also the voter turnout has been, you know, dropping consecutively, because Kenyans are increasingly losing faith in the electioneering, you know, process and procedure, and it's losing meaning. And this is what we need to be fighting. Yeah. And whereas I think the last time I was here, before the election day, you know, we had lauded the IEBC for, you know, seemingly being transparent in the manner in which they were doing their preparations. And they seem to have been ticking all the right boxes. And there seemed to be a lot of transparency. In fact, I said in another platform that even the media yourselves, Trevor, you did a fantastic job in, you know, tracking everything that IEBC was doing for us Kenyans to be able to follow. Because, you know, we had said this time around, we don't want to see IEBC bungle the election the way they did in 2017. Who wants to go back to a repeat election? And, you know, we were all keen to have this election go as smoothly as it is. But, you know, seeing the evidence that is now coming out at the petition, you can see a very choreographed, you know, very organized, tampering of the election, of which you cannot dissociate IEBC from. And, you know, the complacency to allow people to come in and, you know, affect the tallying and the outcome automatically. So I think for me, I associate myself with the fact that regardless of whatever weaknesses either camp may have had, why should there be tampering of the election? Why is it that there seems to be certain people somewhere, some powerful people somewhere, whether they are politicians or business people, who are very keen that we should not fight, corruption, that we always have to affect the outcome and thereby denying Kenyans their will and the people that they have chosen, thereby affecting democracy in the long run. The fact remains that the last few elections, you've had the minority choose leaders, which is not democracy, where we say majority must have their way, and the minority have their say. So this is something we really need to interrogate as leaders as we go forward. And it's also disconcerting when you see one side of the political camp trying to buy off another side and get majority numbers. This is the sort of thing we don't want to see as we go into as the next parliament begins to form. We want to see a robust parliament. We want to see each camp stay where you are. Let us monitor you. Let us see how you're going to deliver to Kenyans and see how the promises will be delivered and that sort of a thing. So I think that's my take.
All right. Let me take a quick break here on Kenya's Choice 2022. When you come back, we talk about the issues that we're seeing on the front page of the Daily Nation and that of the Standard as well, the smoking gun inside Raila's evidence and how we plotted Uhuru's downfall. We'll also touch on the issue of the members of parliament shifting allegiance now in just a bit. All right? Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija, Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Kenya's Choice 2022. See you in just a bit.
Collect fare kwa boda au matatu ukitumia ViewPay cashless na uqualify for bima ya 100,000 shillings pamoja na medical cover ya 20k na permanent disability cover ya 100k kwa 5 bob pekee. Dial *236# today to start using ViewPay cashless.
To feel fresh and prevent odors, it's more important than ever to maintain good hygiene practice and change your pad frequently.
Soft Care Petal Care has a floating design that perfectly fits. It reduces 70% friction on skin, absorbs fully and blocks leakages from both sides.
Soft Care, yeah.
Usinipande kichwani dida. Na kwa taarifa yako nienda kwa huyo mpuzi wako mpaka kwao, lakini sikumpata.
Siseme unachotaka. Why are you beating around the bush?
Ikiwa watu wangu walioitwa kwa jina langu watanyenyekea na kuomba na kunitafuta uso na kuziacha njia zao mbaya, basi nitasikia toka mbinguni na kuwasamehe dhambi yao na kuiponya nchi yao.
Dial *811*342# to get ahadi za nchi.
All right, thank you for staying with Kenya's Choice 2022. Honorable Farah Maalim is still with us here, Member of Parliament-elect for Dadaab. Sylvia Kasanga, former nominated senator, is here with us. We're still waiting for Oliver Kipchumba, advocate of the High Court. As soon as he comes in, we'll drop him into the conversation. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Kenya's Choice 2022. Honorable Maalim, before we went for the break, you're saying that the IBC did well, but except for the presidential. Which part of the presidential tallying did you not agree with?
You see, when you have a disparity between the number of people who have voted for the governor, for the MCA, for the MP, for the senator, and the ones who have voted for the president, and the number is not small, the number is of 1 million votes, then you know there's a problem there. Nobody goes in there and votes for just one person and walks away. There was never provision for that. You see what I mean? And then when you see the disparity also between the Kims and the other Tadi, then of course you know there's something seriously wrong there. All these other numbers are very close. The only one which is significantly and materially very different is the one for the presidency. Now that's where you see, here there's a problem, let's get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the courts are doing now. They'll do that. They'll look at two things, find out exactly where the disparity is there, and only the presidency. And then look at the materiality also to see how material that is, whether it is significant enough to alter or to change the results. You see what I mean? And I think they will judge on those two. They will rule on those two.
Yeah, it is true.
It's much easier than all those other ones which have been argued out before. This one is very simple, very, very simple. And, you know, sometimes one question can determine a case, a matter in court. Only one question. And I think that was done in the last, in the previous petition.
Yeah.
When I can't remember, but it was, I think, both Mwilu, Philomena Mwilu, and Smoky Wanjala asked that question. Where did the other five go? And all that bevy of lawyers, advocates who basically came out there, big names, and none of them could explain where the rest went. You see what I mean? And I think that was the basis on which that matter was determined. And now it's also going to be the basis on which this matter is going to be determined.
Yeah.
As long as we can prove that.
But that same petition...
And why would there be a very significant variation between the KIEMS and the manual tally? The tally, because the tally is always manual. You know what I mean? You add from here and here and here and get it together.
Yeah.
So we have... this matter, in my opinion, is not any complicated. And let's wait. Let's see how this matter is argued out. Yeah. I do see there are a lot of other issues, that the hacking aspect of it, the people who went in there with their laptops into the tallying place, yeah? The rules that have been sent, the ground rules that have been set from the beginning that were never respected, the issue of the problem between some commissioners and the chairman of the commission. I mean, these are all of them are corroborating what they call evidence or facts.
Yeah.
But the centerpiece is going to be how do you then how do you deal with that problem?
Yeah, that same petition you're talking about of 2017 was very clear that the election process has to be verifiable and credible.
Absolutely.
We saw that Form 34A is being uploaded. And I'm skirting around this issue because we don't want to delve into the sub judice realm of it. The court will decide on the 5th of September. But is it possible then that there are people whose habits are just peculiar, especially on the choosing part that you're saying? The question then would be, is the number appearing on Form 34A physically with the returning officer the same one that is in the portal? Isn't that where the argument is? So that you see the numbers.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that maybe you might say somebody did not vote for the senator but voted for the president only. But the question is, were the returning officers there? Did the observers see those numbers? Did the agents also see those numbers? And is that Form 34A that the returning officer has, is it the same one on the portal? Isn't that where the rubber meets the road?
Yes. The issue is, you see, you tally, you say 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8. On that 34, depending on the number of candidates that are there. Yeah. And then you decide to add a few votes for one candidate. Even at that level, at the presiding officer's level, you add for it. You might think that those 34A will be uploaded into the portal, and the Chebukati or the commission has no role finding out how those numbers were reached at. That's exactly what they're saying. This was sent directly from the polling stations. Yeah, sent by polling stations, collected, brought together, tallied by the ROs, and sent from there. We don't want to question, but you will question because they're glaring. I mean, here is all that you have to send. You send from there. It's there on that Form 34A. Form 34A is a manual thing that's basically written. And in the case of Central Province and Upper Rift Valley, parts of Rift Valley and the rest of it, because there were no agents, the other agents only concentrated on their own candidates. They concentrated on making sure that nothing goes wrong on the MCA, on the MP, on the governor, on the senator, and the woman rep. But there was nobody here to say, wait a minute, I mean, how do you arrive at these numbers? You know what I mean? So the RO can decide, and all you need to do is you're just building another 40 or 50 or 60 additional votes into every what do you call Form 34A.
Yeah.
Then what happens? Only for the presidency, you have a limit of 700 per polling station. You're dealing with 680 votes there. Putting in 80 votes on top of that, or 60 votes or 30 votes on top of that, is sufficient material enough to alter the results. Because you're dealing with what? Those two areas alone have got what? 16 or 17,000 polling stations. How many do they have in central Kenya and in Rift Valley? You see what I mean? So you have to check both that.
Okay.
And if need be, at some stage, to verify more, seek a recount.
Yeah.
Seek a recount.
Okay.
And if those ballot boxes are secure,
yeah,
you can rest assured that the smoking gun will be there.
Yeah.
Easily be found.
Okay. Kasanga, you know, the petitioners are calling this a smoking gun. It's still on the Daily Nation as well and on the Standard as well. Which one of them stands out for you the most? Where do you think the whole case starts and crumbles at?
No, it's a strong case through and through in my view. And actually, of all the petitioners who've brought in the question on the numbers, you can see where they're coming from. You know, even the Caliph petition, where they're looking at the register, for instance,
yeah,
which means that from the beginning of the election, there were significant issues. You know, when you hear there were over 400,000 ghost voters, that is of significance. So it looks like even the register itself had a challenge from the word go. It looks like the process of auditing the register that had been, going on either was not completed based on now the Caliph register, and that is of great significance. Easy also to prove, I agree with my colleague here, very easy for the courts to see if there was a challenge in that case, and everyone now will be wondering, who are these ghost voters and who did they vote for? Those numbers went, to who? This choreographed thing that I've been talking about. And of course, the issue of the 34As being altered because there was a back end. It seems like, and from the evidence that we are getting, there was a back end somewhere receiving, the photographic evidence that the KIMS kit were taking, and they would alter it and then send it back again to the IEBC portal.
But then the one that will be brought manually, would it match?
That's what
it will not match, yes.
Even if I write a figure here, you take a picture and upload it and alter those figures, the one that I wrote doesn't change. So when I bring the physical one, how will it?
It doesn't have to change. The picture on the scheme, on the KIM, and the one which has been uploaded must be the same.
Exactly.
You take the picture of the KIM, but then what is happening right now is that the picture of the KIM is different, and from the ones which have been uploaded there.
Okay, that's the one now that the court will decide.
So the courts now will exactly.
The courts know that this has been padded.
Exactly, and you see the good thing now with technology, everything is traceable. Everything in the IT, I understand in the IT world, is traceable. A file is traceable. You can trace where it's coming from, who created it, who accessed it, and things like that. So all these very strong cases that we are seeing coming out here. Okay. And actually, I know we have a very good case as Azimio, and I am actually not worried, although it does feel a lot of pain. Emotionally, there's a lot of pain, and a lot of us are hurting, because for how long are we going to keep seeing this tampering that is going on, Okay. So for sure we have a strong case here.
Let's leave the merits and the demerits of the case to the Supreme Court. They'll decide on the 5th of September. But Honorable Malim, let me bring you back to the conduct of the commissioners themselves. There was a clear fallout that was seen. Four of them saying that these results are not our own. Yes. And then Chebukati comes out and says that they wanted to force a runoff. How can such a standoff be resolved going into the future? And what do you make of the behavior between the two, the public difference? Should it have been that public?
When it got to that public, you must understand that all other avenues were exhausted, and Chebukati wasn't listening.
According to the four commissioners.
Yes, that he had set his mind. He had set his mind. He had decided how this election is going to be determined, and basically he wasn't going to listen to anybody. And because he's a returning officer, I'm going to do this. So he did a lot of it without even involving them. So that in itself is suspect. You understand my point? That's a suspect, because according to the Constitution, the commission is supposed to tally, not the returning officer. The commission is supposed to tally. The commission is supposed to verify. The commission is supposed to scrutinize. It's there in the Constitution. We didn't do that. I mean, ordinarily, if I'm leading an institution and I don't worry about the fact that I'm doing something above board, I'll sit down with them, I'll reason with them. I'll tell them, okay, show me where your fears are. Oh, there's a difference here between what is on the 34A and what is in the KIMC and what's uploaded there. Why don't we get the presiding officers and the returning officers, summon them immediately and find out why there are different numbers on this and different numbers on the KIMS? Very simple. They still had 24 hours more. You see what I mean? There are constituencies that were never uploaded. You understand my point? There were constituencies. There are many constituencies that were not reflected in the final tally. Even with his own, what we believe is a tally that was not correct, there was still some left out. So with such a sensitive job, sensitive, what do you call, mandate, you really would want to bend backwards over to show everybody you've done the right thing. Prove to everybody that you've done the right thing. But not to steamroll over them, you know what I mean?
Okay.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
So yes, and just to add on to what he's saying, when you look at the Omukia Motata petition, then you wonder what was the rush to announce when you've not fully tabulated, all aspects of the final tally. In fact, the question now, that's where you even, put a question mark. Yeah, what was this rush that necessitated the chairperson of IEBC to announce when the full tally had not even been completed? So those are some of the challenges that we are seeing.
That may be there, but then the question is, how then do you balance between the will of the people and the commissioners? Because if you go that direction, in Article 138.10, I was actually just reading it right now on Farah, it says within 7 days after the presidential election, the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall declare the result of the election and deliver a written notification of the result to the Chief Justice and the incumbent president. So it is, the honors are with the chairperson. But even
no, the chairperson is the spokesperson. The commission is supposed to reach at those numbers. Look at the Constitution.
I'm reading this verbatim, 138.10.
Yes, yes.
Constitution.
You see, you don't cherry pick even within the Constitution itself. You take it in its own entirety. The chairperson is definitely the spokesperson of the just like the president of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Is the spokesperson and the president of the Supreme Court.
But related.
But he does not unilaterally have the powers to steamroll over the others. No.
So what I'm asking, Honorable Malim, is then how do you safeguard against subversion of the will of the people by the commissioners? Because if 4 out of 7 say that this is the direction we take, what if that is not what the will of the majority of the people?
But that's why I'm saying that you then wait until you reason out with them fully, and if it doesn't work, and you find them compromised, for example, you can have 6 or 7 members of this, or 6 or 5 of the members compromised. We're not saying that just go with the consensus or go with the majority. If it's glaring, you can have your own dissenting opinion on this, but you come out and explain it fully. You see what I mean? Okay. These are the areas. These are the areas we're dealing with. These are the constituencies that are still outstanding. These are the numbers, yeah? And this is what we have. They claim ABCD, but then you verify that.
Okay.
It says verifiable and accountable. You verify, you scrutinize, yeah?
Okay.
It's an institution. The electoral elections of the country and the referenda are carried out by an institution, a body, a corporate body called the IEBC. It has a leadership. The leadership is a spokesperson, but the leadership cannot act alone unilaterally.
All right.
No. And that's what's happened right now.
Okay. Let me bring up some of the feedback in regards to this conversation. Then we get into the conversation where members of parliament seem to be moving now to the Kenya Kwanza team and what impact that has to democracy, number one, and whether ideology still is an issue here in this country. Let's bring that up on your screen and see what you're saying. Bob Otieno Owino says, I'm afraid the 13th Parliament won't perform as Kenyans expect because already elected leaders have started shifting camps even before they start doing their work. We may end up having a weaker opposition. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Will that weaken the opposition? Kinyua Mushoki says, Azimio candidates hired agents to protect their votes but did not bother to protect their presidential vote. That is absurdity of the highest order. Okay. Mutinda Mose says, Kenyan elections pattern. Well, elections, Supreme Court refused to participate in a rerun, cause chaos and demonstrations, demand for Nusumkate. Okay. Chalowood Rosie says, my concern is not who won the election because they are all Kenyans, but how it was won. The Supreme Court has to determine what transpired. For peace to prevail, justice needs to be served. Okay. Barack says, at the end of all these, someone will remain with a big rotten egg on his face. It's a farce. You will realize this when holes are poked in the thin veil. Okay. Mogire Jasper, the story now that Azimio or some losing politicians didn't have agents all over is a red herring. It makes elective office expensive and therefore corrupt. It's why we spend billions on IBC so that even the poorest can vie. Okay. Sylvia, you're the one who started this conversation of the movement of the legislators, and you've seen it, and also the first tweet that came there, I think it was from Bob Owino, saying that there's no ideology, that's the reason why people are moving. Is that the situation? Has it always been a selfish interest game?
Parliament and politics is a game of numbers. You can understand why everyone wants the majority numbers so that you can have your agenda in Parliament, smooth sailing, very little resistance, and you can get things to just go your way, the way you want it to go. And that is the scary part, because like we saw in the last Parliament, and the earlier one, the 11th Parliament, how government would use, say, miscellaneous bills to pass many other, hidden bills inside without nobody questioning.
Yeah.
And, it would just, everything just passes so easily. That lack of having a strong opposition is not a good thing for democracy.
Yeah.
And it's not good for robust debate, because what robust debate does is, it fine-tunes the question that has been put on the floor, and the outcome then is good for Kenyans, because then it has considered and taken into consideration everybody's input. So when you see this camp that is busy pulling their numbers,
yeah,
the question that comes into my mind actually is trying to have an all-powerful, trying to take also again control of Parliament. So the independence of Parliament becomes a challenge and a question. And that's why one of our viewers who has written there is saying there might be not that much difference. Mm-hmm. And this is why we have to really speak to our leaders that they stick to their camps, because each camp had, its own manifesto, its own idea on how it should deliver. And there were good differences in how the two main camps were going to deliver to Kenyans. So it's sad when you see members moving. And I agree, this is when now members are then questioned over the ideology question that you're asking me. Then did you really go in there with an ideology, or are you just going now for your own personal interests? And in such instances, you can see where the personal interest comes in. This perception that there's already, because one camp has already been given the certificate, so then it giving the impression that they're already beginning to form government, and beginning to take charge, even before the courts have determined. And the others running there because they feel they don't want to be left behind is purely personal interests.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely very sad. I said in another forum that I'm looking forward to some of them, especially the ones that come from our region here in Ukambani.
Yeah.
They will come back begging because they're busy running.
One of them is Governor Kibwana.
And I'm not talking about Governor Kibwana, who has already served his term. I'm actually talking about the current elected members who have ridden on the backs of Azimio to win the election in Ukambani. And immediately they are rushed off to go to the other side. That is purely on personal interests. And it will be sad. And they forget Kenyans are watching. And Kenyans are not, no longer as informed politically. They can see these people are running there for their own, personal benefits. There's no even respect upon which the backs of the people you have risen into power. And they will come back, and they will come back crying.
Right.
So it is personal interest that takes, that makes members, do this thing. You're supposed to be, stand firm, be loyal, stand for what you believe, regardless of where it ends up. You stand with what you believe in.
Okay. Honorable Male?
Well, I agree with Madam very well. But what I don't understand, I could understand some of these members who were running to the executive in the 7th Parliament, for example, and the 8th Parliament. I remember when we were there in the 7th Parliament in 1993 to 1997, end of 1997 and beginning of 1998. On a Thursday afternoon, we used to be left just a few of us in the chambers. Why the rest of the members of Parliament would run to State House to pick up the small handouts that used to be given those days, so they can go and visit their constituents over the weekend. And how much was a member of Parliament earning that time? When I first came in, the salary of a member of Parliament was 10,000. And the allowance, the mileage, for the farthest end where I was going myself was only 8,000. So clearly, you would get less than 50,000 per 8,000 something, multiply that by 4 weeks, and then you end up with 32 something plus 10,000, less than 50,000 is what an MP used to get. It's understandable that time because people were broke. They didn't have money unless you had an alternative source of income like business, which I fortunately had myself. Then it was easy to compromise people because they say that in a democracy, if you have to make a choice between your meal and the protection of democracy, then ordinarily many people would decide that, no, I can't starve. But now it's different. A member of Parliament is very well paid. You see what I mean? Very, very well paid. And a member of Parliament has access to a number of resources that he does not have to be politically correct to access them. As a matter of fact, let me tell you one thing. I have gone to many different, there are NGOs, there are international bodies that are here. There are big, social, what you call corporate social responsibility. You can literally get support for any of the noble projects you want to implement back at home from an array of different institutions that are there. Why do you have to run to State House? Why does a governor who just left doing 10 years have to run to the elected, decide that this is where I was before, but now I'm going to run to this because this is where the presidency seems to be coming from. You don't have to be politically correct for you to become relevant now.
Yeah.
I think times are different. Times are different.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a culture that's set in. We have governors who are running. What I know myself is that there were governors who used to take money to the presidency. I want to say the presidency. I don't want to say the president, but presidency.
Yeah.
For the longest, because there are more resources in the county at the county level than the president or deputy president could scrounge around here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, there's the national budget and the national projects that were there, but the governors at the county levels had more maneuverability and a lot of resources at their disposal, and they used to take some of this money there. You wonder why? Why? You understand my point?
Yeah.
Why would you want to take money from the poor people in Wajir, in Garissa, in Mandera to bring it to, you know what I mean, a president or a deputy president here, or the hangers around those people? Because this is where the center is. Only 15% has gone to the periphery.
So this migration we're seeing, will it have an impact on the robust conversations in the floor of the House like you are hoping for? You are hoping for
it will have a serious impact, yes. And unfortunately, it will have a serious impact on that. But I can assure you one thing. You just need a handful or two handful very serious members in that House. They will move the agenda, I can assure you that. With good ideas, with unbending principles and integrity,
yeah.
and basically will say things as they are without any fear, You see what I mean? And without expecting anything from anybody.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to, you see, at the end of the day, truth prevails.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it might take a long time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, wisdom, prevails.
Okay.
So I think that the interest of the people is, in my opinion, more sanctified than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else. The interest. Let me tell you one thing that I have not shared for more than 15 years now. You remember when we had the swearing in of Parliament, the 10th Parliament, and Marende and myself were elected as
Speaker and Deputy.
Speaker.
Yeah.
And Ababu Namwamba went out there to contest the swearing in of our president then, President-elect Kibaki. And there was a pressure from our side, ODM, because we had the numbers from our side, at a very high level, for the speaker to rule on that and say because of the nature of weighty issues that have been raised on the floor of the House by Ababu Namwamba, that you are going to give a ruling on Wednesday, and in the process try and delay the swearing in of Kibaki, who was the president-elect at that time. Maybe I want to believe that he did not win and it was an element of rigging, but nonetheless, it was not in our mandate. The speaker has no role, or his deputy has no role in determining who becomes the president. That's the work of ECK those days.
Yeah.
And we got pressure from our side. And we decided, I sat with Marende and I told him, no, you do that, we don't have Kenya tomorrow. It doesn't matter whether it's coming from our side of the divide. We feel cheated, yes. We feel Kibaki does not rightfully deserve that. But this is not the institution that has to determine that. There's a different institution. So let us maintain our role fairly, impartially, non-partisan, and patriotically to the letter and serve this country, because we don't want to add fuel to fire. You know what I mean? And that's how we went, and that's how we sat down with Marende, we drafted a small, ruling on that, yeah. and the ruling was there.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And the speaker ruled on that. Okay. So what I'm trying to tell you is that non-partisan patriotism is what is called for at the very critical hours in a country. Like now, we have all our grievances. I have my grievance because I expected Azimio to win. But if Azimio has not been declared the president in this country, that's not the end of the world. We still have a country to protect. You know what I mean? Yeah. We still have to be proud of the fact that we feel cheated, and at the same time the country is peaceful. Okay. So what we need, in line with what I'm just saying right now, is a number of members of parliament who will be there, who will have the country as a first calling. Okay. You know what I mean? Yes. Their sense of patriotism, of the men and the women who will be there, should supersede the loyalty to different, quotas, political quotas.
Yeah. Kasanga, having been an insider, how important is it for a legislator to belong to the side of the ruling government? What perks, what advantages does it have? Why are we seeing all this migration to one side? You mentioned personal interests, but having been there yourself and served as a nominated senator, what is the advantage of being aligned with the ruling party?
Maybe access to resources, a little more access to resources.
And this doesn't happen to the people deemed opposition?
Actually, it still does. But when you're in government, quote unquote, because that's what it is, you have easier access to probably a little bit more resources. You can push for, say, a road here and there, and it may come faster than if you're on the other side. So it becomes a little easier to access the executive and get certain things, done probably faster or otherwise. So there's that.
But it doesn't affect your constitutional mandate, does it?
Well, it does in the sense that on what platform do you go to parliament? And is that aligned with what the other side stands for? Or when you now get into parliament, you disregard what it is that you rose what you campaigned on the platform that you campaigned on, do you leave that aside then and forget about it? And probably your promises to the people were based on that, and then shift to this other side because there are those other salient advantages that come. Not that they're not there if you're on this other side.
Yeah.
And more importantly, like my colleague is saying, we're in a dispensation where there's already clear governance structures in how resources move to the people. Okay, now that CDF is not there, although I am almost certain that...
No, it's there. It's there. It's there. There's a small technical element.
Yeah, let her finish then.
Okay.
Yeah, so, well, there's already a set, governance methodology in which resources then trickle down to the people and how people are able to access development from the national government and from the county government. So really, this other extent of members moving to be aligned with the say the government of the day is also just a perception more than you can't deliver your mandate.
Yeah.
And for purposes of democracy and retaining a robust parliament and bringing good debate to the House, it is imperative that leaders stay true to their cause. The cause with which brought you to that House, you stay true to that cause.
Yeah.
Because your debate then will inform the improvement of certain legislation, for instance, or may even stop certain other legislations that are coming from the executive from happening because it's a cause you believe in. So you then disregard that. That means your people who you promise certain things then will not get those promises simply because you have decided to align yourself with, a very different camp from what you campaigned on.
Yeah. And Honorable Malim, I ask this because as a veteran yourself, there was a concern that the 12th Parliament towards the end somehow muddied their relationship between opposition and government, and there was one clamped up parliament that was under the executive.
There was hardly any difference.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, to begin with, by the way, the CDF will still be there. It is there, actually, as a matter of fact, because the act...
Despite the Supreme Court ruling.
Well, Supreme Court ruled on the Act of 2013.
Okay.
That act had since been superseded by the Act of 2015.
So the current one is on 2015. I've had that argument before, but you will...
Current one is on 2015, and there's probably a small technicality in which it has to be taken through Senate, which I believe they did take it in the last Parliament. I don't know. I stand guided to find out whether it's done or not. So CDF will be there. Let me tell you one thing. I mean, I have achieved a lot as an opposition member of parliament in this country, by the way, let me tell you. We have the finest civil servants out there. And when you go to them for water, for road, for education, for whatever it is, they just look at the merits of the case you present. Our civil servants, you see, the one which was the most politicized would have been the one of 1992 to 1997 to 2002. And I was in the parliament. I was there in the 7th parliament as the only opposition member of parliament from the north. And I achieved 10 times more than all the other members of parliament who were in Kano that time put together in terms of education. I got access to all the university, the tertiary colleges. I had a motion, a quota affirmative action through quota system motion in parliament that was supported by the government. As a matter of fact, when I moved the motion, and the first person who came to me and told me, I want to second you on that motion, was none other than the late Intimama, who was a minister, cabinet minister.
Yeah.
And the total man, Biwott, supported it.
And yet you're on the opposition.
I was on the other side.
Yeah.
You get my point? And overnight, in 1 year alone, we were able to take 550 students from the region because they lowered the requirement for the universities and lowered also the requirement for the tertiary colleges, like Kenya Medical Training College and the rest. We took all the numbers of students. I had access to scholarships from outside the country because JAB, we had a problem with JAB that time, the Joint Admissions Board. And progressively, working with the late Dr. Bonaya Godana, who was on the other side, he was in Kanu, and I was in Fort Kenya. We managed to convince Professor Eshiwani of Kenyatta University to break ranks with the Joint Admissions Board. You get my point? And admitted our students who are from the primary school teachers, P1s, who admitted back into the university in record numbers to now proceed and pursue a Bachelor of Education degrees there. And I remember because our argument was that you cannot have equal merit in the country if there are no equal opportunities. There are students there who have never seen a teacher, a biology teacher, for 4 years.
Yeah.
And you expect them to compete with the students from Alliance High School, from Mangu, from Aseno, and from St. Mary's Yala? No. And what happened is a student who had a D+ in his Form 4, went to a teacher training college as a P1, was brought back again and as a Bachelor of Education, had a first class, and was the best graduating student in Kenyatta University at that time. That indicated to us all. And Professor Shiwani broke ranks, admitted students. Progressively, every university started doing its own things, which I still continue to do even today. I mean, we still get students from those regions admitted to critical disciplines like medicine and engineering, but on that quota basis because they went to schools there. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, look, I engaged the former deputy prime minister, who was the minister for finance, who was the last president, who was the current president, by the way, still not the last president, on the road from Garissa all the way to Modogashi. Yeah. And then we pushed. I traveled out of this place on a number of occasions to lobby for the Arab Fund. And I had his total support until the matter was sealed and sealed, and a procurement was done for the road. The road is tarmac now from Garissa all the way to Modogashi.
So you don't have to come from the same side?
No, no, we were in different sides. He was in PNU, I was in ODM.
Yeah.
You get my point. He was the deputy prime minister. I was the deputy speaker there. But we still find grounds in which we could cooperate on national development. You can still do that today.
But the 12th parliament seemed to have lost it towards the end.
I'm not quite sure. I think when you look, choices have consequences. The people who dropped the ball and started electing to parliaments, people who did not quite have the interest of the masses at heart, people who had not proven their own worth in public calling before they got into parliament. And basically, there were a lot of them who were just doing wheeling and dealing business, you know what I mean? So there are people who come to parliament there to protect their businesses or to widen their own scope in as far as business is a place to make money, in a sense. You don't expect that person to spend a lot of time lobbying for projects for his people there, no. He or she would feel that I have the money, I'll buy the votes tomorrow, and I can do what I want. I mean, he's running after his own business. Yeah. People, there are members of parliament who run after their own businesses, their own deals, all the time. So for members who are serious about the development of their people, it doesn't matter whether you're from the opposition or not from the opposition. As a matter of fact, let me tell you one thing. I have now, in the last 5 months, drilled 5 boreholes in my constituency. Yeah. Getting support from all sorts of agencies, including the government, and rehabilitated 10 other boreholes. I was not a member of parliament. You get my point? Yeah. And you might find an MP who has not been able to do 5 boreholes in 5 years in his own constituency from the north. Are you getting my point? Yeah. So the point I'm trying to tell you is that you don't have to be out there pledging some, lousy allegiance, which is of the yesteryears, the stuff of, 80s and then early 90s. And BMM, no, you're completely divorced from times. But that all depends on whether the MPs are there for calling, for social calling, for community calling, for higher calling, or they're there for their own personal interests.
Having seen the 13th parliament composition, are you confident that they're there for the...
Well, I know of a number of good guys who are there. I know of somebody from Pokot. I think Moroto is there. Sunkuli is there. I'm looking at some of the old hands who were very serious about their own. You see, those days, we were very serious about the development of our people. I'm there, and I'm sure there are a number of other people from a number of other places who are there. I will see final list when we get into the house on the induction on 25th. Yes. Which is today, is it? No. When is 25th?
25th is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes, which is Thursday.
That's on Thursday. Okay.
And then some of the few old hands who were there with us in the 7th Parliament. Yeah. 7th Parliament. Julius Mkwili was there in the 7th Parliament as a very young and very, very brilliant, progressive young man. And I am sure there will be a good number of the same old guard who are there. And of course, the young people who have fire in their stomachs and really wants to make a difference in their people's plights.
Okay.
So we will find a way in which we will talk about the interests of the country and bring patriotism first and foremost, and bring development to the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
The people who are there who are not getting their meals, 3 square meals a day. And that is what we should worry about.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we're not careful, there's going to be a class revolution in this country. Because right now, you have just a small percentage of the population of this country that is filthy wealthy. And that filthy wealthy small percentage has also become audacious and arrogant because it feels it can buy political power. You know what I mean? Because of the poverty, the rampant poverty. But when you read history, progressively until a day will come and they'll rise against you, and that's the end of you.
Yeah.
So we have to attend to the serious, vulnerable masses out there in the pockets of poverty in the slums in this country, in the deep rural areas, people who lose their livestock every cycle of what they call drought out there. And these are the people we have to attend to. The joblessness, we have millions of young men and women who cannot find jobs in the country here. So we have to address those things in a very serious manner.
Okay.
And just to...
as you respond to that also, I'd like to hear your views in terms of what should the 13th Parliament now do to ensure they adhere to the doctrines of the separation of powers?
I first want to add to what he's saying, that one thing I feel we missed out on as a country in the last cycle of politics is voter education. Civic education.
Civic education.
Yeah, I feel the civic education was very little, and when it was done last minute. And probably and most likely that is the reason we saw a lower voter turnout, and we saw also a large demographic of our Kenyans not taking up the vote at the time when IEBC was trying to increase the number of voters, if you remember. Even, regardless of how much work the leaders went out to have Kenyans come out and take their voter ID and register themselves, you still, we recorded very low numbers this year that we should have. And, our expectation was that especially the younger demographic would have seen an increase in the numbers in the voter register, which didn't happen. And many of them, even those who are registered, still didn't come out to vote. And that, lends largely to voter education, civic education. And the more we do it, the good thing for our country is that we become more politically aware. And the young population then can be pulled up into their political awareness to the point where they can make informed decisions on their leaders. What exactly are our leaders supposed to do for us? What is an MP supposed to do for me? What is an MCA supposed to do for me? How should I participate in budget-making processes at the ward level? Because that's what our constitution provides for. You still find that a lot of our young people are not participating as much, yet, our constitution envisages that we are the people, we are the ones who make decisions even on budget, right from the ward level through to the national level. So we should, the next parliament must push for this. And I remember IEBC, decrying the fact that they were lacking in budget. So they were unable to do a lot of the things in good time. And even when the budgets were finally brought, it was so late in the hour. If you remember, even training of their clerks, some of it was happening at such a late stage because of budgetary issues. So the 13th Parliament has to be deliberate when it comes to matters civic education if we are going to save our democracy, because our election is our democracy. It is the way we participate in making sure we have a leadership and a governance that then can provide services down to the people. And I can't remember what you asked me.
How do they adhere to this doctrine of separation of powers? It's partly what you've started answering.
It is, again, it's being deliberate while you're in parliament.
Yeah.
Like what he's saying. You have to be true to your cause. And you have to know that you've been given, the power has been donated to you by the people who elected you. So you go into that house with confidence. Knowing that you now have the power to represent the people. And you should not be intimidated. You should not be intimidated to do the will of the people. If that's what your people want, then you do it. And you stand for it and you fight for it.
Yeah.
If we can have a lot more members who are ready to stand that way, then that adherence that you're asking about is going to happen. But if many members are fearful or shy or, for whatever reason feel intimidated, then we are going to have a failure, and we're going to have a house that is then, complacent or just aligned to the executive for that matter. And therefore, again, we don't serve Kenyans the way we are supposed to serve Kenyans. Yeah, with that robust debate that we are talking about.
Okay.
So we hope that we shall have a good number of members who are brave to take on that mantle they've been given by the people through the vote and just do what they're supposed to do. Be conscientious enough, because that's what the oath says. Just do what you're supposed to do and do it without fear. You're protected while you're in parliament to that extent.
Okay. Honorable Maalim, this courage that Kasanga is talking about, we've seen some legislators claim that sometimes the war on corruption has been weaponized against those perceived to be against government. Would that be one of the reasons why everybody now elected in the 13th parliament is now trying to realign to the ruling?
No. That's a very, very flimsy excuse. They can say we have not been treated on an equal footing with the ones in the government. You see, the war on corruption could have the effect of people who are very corrupt in the government side. I mean, there's never been any microscope on them, or the flashlights, the floodlights have not been shown on them. But the other side, because they're also corrupt. You see, when you have issues and you have questions to answer, it does not become justifiable for you to say, why only me? Why not the others also? No, that's not right. It doesn't work that way in law. The issue is, are you guilty or are you not guilty? And to bring that into the net the more is another process. You understand my point? Is another process in which you can volunteer information and say, look, you are dealing with me, yes. I have my issues here, which I can deal with you, but then so and so and so and so and so and so have also these things. And I think it's important at this stage in this country for there to be incentives on whistleblowers. This country has a tradition of destroying whistleblowers. So that now shows a conspiracy. You see, when you become the judge, the jury, and the executioner, and there is no place for these poor people who say, let's protect this country. And the system protects the corrupt and destroys the whistleblowers. I don't know if you remember the Goldenberg early days. The whistleblower was a young man from Masai land who was from Central Bank. I don't think he's alive. I think he's lost his life. But he had a very rough life. That should not happen. We will go out there and create incentives in Parliament for those who are able to become whistleblowers on some of these serious economic crimes. You understand my point? If they get rewarded for being patriotic and for protecting their country and for being hawk-eyed and seeing some of these things and say, look, something is not going right here.
Yeah.
We also need to begin dealing with our parastatals and corporations in a manner that's different from the way we've always done. You see, we are sitting on a coastline that is the richest in every sense of the word, with the major sea lanes of the world. You get my point? People are able to develop a masterpiece of a port and an epic thing in the Strait of Hormuz. You can call it the Strait of Hormuz or the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Gulf, whatever you want to call it. And you go in 1,002 kilometers off the main sea lanes to go to Dubai. And they're handling 70 million TEUs in a year. What stops you from making independent ports along our coast? We started the Lapset. We have not made them independent. We hooked them up to KPA. So this one makes a little money, this one takes the other money. And we needed to have 4 or 5 of those kind of serious ports, which we can do in collaboration with major shipping lines. You get my point? And then there are this ripple effect. You'll be serving ship chandling, ship repairs, bunkers, you know what I mean? Overnight would create jobs for 1 million, people can benefit from that. 100,000, 200,000 jobs for that. But you see, what we look at ourselves when they are the policymakers and as the designers we're looking for white elephant projects because they have a serious kickbacks. We went to SGR. SGR was an absolute mess. We never went to SGR because we wanted to change this country for the better, but because there were some serious kickbacks in that. You understand my point? Now those are the areas where politicians are supposed to. How many of them have you seen bring up serious motions on accountability for some of these white elephant projects we have in the country? It's not there. And I think this parliament is going to play that role very well. Across the aisle, by the way, when you want to protect the country, party loyalty should not become an issue.
Okay.
You understand my point?
All right.
I would personally advocate for the setting up of another 3 or 4 major ports that are going to handle transit cargo, that we just need to have the mind. Look at Singapore and just take a lesson from how Singapore, from being the poorest backyard in there, turned out to become what it is right now, and it's on a land that's smaller than Nairobi, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Singapore is smaller than Nairobi. You get my point? And it's got a GDP of trillions.
Yeah.
Now, we can do that. We talk about it and we always say we can do it. This parliament has got to come up with some powerful, proactive things in which the government of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's going to be Ruto or it's going to be Raila. I'm hoping that we have Raila as a president, even if it's only for 1 term. But at the end of the day, there has to be a political class in parliament that is going to, pick the ball.
All right.
And run with it.
Okay, let me bring up quick feedback, then come and take closing remarks on this conversation. Let's see what you're saying really quick here. We have Okelo Mwalimu, who says Kenya is a country that suffers from acute death of political ideologies. It's sad that individuals can shift camps even before they are sworn in as MPs. Tumbocracy shouldn't be confused for democracy. This is totally unacceptable. Okay. Isaac Mudusi says, 12th Parliament displayed clearly the meaning of state capture. Dr. WSR has high numbers in the House as we talk. I voted him, but how will he not control the 13th Parliament? I'm worried. State capture might continue. Okay. Closing remarks. Sylvia, I'll start with you.
Oh.
With the 13th Parliament.
Yeah, first I want to, wish all the elected members in the 3rd Parliaments, in the county assemblies, governors, everybody, senators, women reps, I want to wish them all well as they go and start their mandate on serving Kenyans. And, I wish them Godspeed. And also just ask Kenyans, let's be patient. For us who are hurting, we are waiting, we're going to wait, and we shall be vindicated once this case is over. So let's be patient, let us be peaceful, and let's continue praying for our nation. Let me finish it at that. Yeah.
All right. Malim, closing remarks.
Yeah, we have a country to protect at the end of the day. We have one of the youngest populations in the world. We're sitting on a time bomb. If you don't act fast, we have a problem in this country. And I will really, I consider this debate today, TV debate. I mean, I've been debating in TVs now for, God knows, 30 years plus. And I'm very happy this debate this morning. Very, very happy about this debate this morning. You should facilitate something like that. You facilitate young people to come up there. I'm not young, she's young, but to express their vision, not in a utopian, wishful way, but in a practical way, what can be done to change this country for the better. It's going to dampen the serious political divides and ethnic divides and regional divides that we have in the country. And we need to give to our country the best we can give before we go down, because we all are going, at the end of the day, we're just waiting for the day, when you can, your eulogy is there and you go. But at that time, you all know where you're going to end up. It's a very small, is it 6 by what? 6 by 2 or 6 by 1?
6.
Yeah. But then what is more important than anything else, regardless of whether you've been a president, you've been the richest man in this country, is nothing follows you into that grave.
Yeah.
Other than the image that you built out there, which will be remembered by the people who you leave behind as some kind of a beacon. Okay. They can remember you as somebody who has had good ideas and who did the best for his country for the time he or she was alive. You can also be remembered for a crook who destroyed this country. And we have those in equal measure right now. And many of the people I knew who were with me in the 7th Parliament are not alive today. You understand my point? Yeah. And they're not alive today. I was just telling you how Ntimama rose up and seconded the motion of a member of parliament from the opposition. You know, in 1993, that was the highest risk one would take because the divide between KANU and the opposition was just too wide. Yeah. But he said, for the principle and for the benefit of the people from the pastoral, nomadic areas and the rest, I will have to go down in history as having put in my support. And he supported us. We worked together as a group, although we are across the divide. And we did. We achieved a lot. We achieved serious, development in terms of the human resource that we developed from the pastoral communities and sending them to all the colleges and that's basically how we want us to approach this, our parliamentary role right now, is to work across the aisle for the betterment of our country. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making time this morning. Honorable Farah Mali, Member of Parliament-elect for Dadaab, and Sylvia Kasanga, former nominated senator. Oliver Kipchumba, advocate of the High Court, says apologies, he couldn't make it. He had a bit of an incident earlier on this morning, but he's all right. So we'll have him again next time. And thank you so much for all the feedback that you sent through. Coming up next is Dr. Felix Odero talking to Willis Bazu Raburu, talking about underweight issues. We'll find out.